Hey, thanks for joining us, folks. I am interviewing Brittany Bandstra today. Brittany has played on a couple of different Void Contact albums. She played clarinet, and then in our live show, she played clarinet, saxophone, and sang. Brittany, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here.
And so this is not, I just want to ask a couple of questions because I know your time is valuable. How did you get into music? Let's just start with that. Like, tell us a little bit about yourself in music.
So just good old, like I was actually into the arts my whole life. My parents got me into dance studio classes and everything. But then once fifth grade rolled around, a couple band teachers put some instruments in my hands, and I really wanted to be a flautist at first, or flutist, whatever people prefer calling that. I really wanted to do that at first, but I couldn't make a sound. And so I ended up doing clarinet because that was what I made the best sound on. And sure enough, I put my dancing shoes away and I started playing my instrument all through middle and high school, doing choirs, doing musical performances, dramatic performances, and the arts has just been a big piece of me my whole life. And so much so that I still do it. I'm teaching children and it's a dream come true.
Awesome. So, how I know how, but for the viewers, how did you come about this project? How did you get involved with Void Contact?
So actually, David's daughter, Ray, is one of my former students. And Ray was in a lot of my things while I was teaching at the school she went to. And what was great about Ray was I could always count on her, like, hey, real quick, I need like a small gig. We're gonna put this together. I need you to sing. I need you to do this, 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 and this. And I would accompany her and she'd be like, I'm there, I'll do it. And there were even a few times we were like hired out to play at small venues and everything as like a small jazz combo. And she would just go and sing. And we'd grab a couple other talented students and throw them in a trio or a quartet, and they would just take it away. And it was really phenomenal to work with her. And then when I found out you were making music, was you had reached out to me because that's how we got to know each other, through Ray, of course. And you asked me to record on an album, which I'd never done before. It was a little scary, but you made it really fun. I had a lot of fun playing the music, listening to the music. And I'm trying to remember what year it was that we recorded everything.
The album that you were played on, the first album you played on,
Yeah.
came out in 2018. So that had to be, I would guesstimate 2016 or 2017 when you actually played.
Yeah. So like I was actually I was trying to remember if when I was practicing the music for your album, if I had been pregnant or had just had JP. And I'm like, I don't really remember him being like my youngest son. I don't
Yeah,
really remember him being like in the picture yet. But
I don't think he was.
I don't think he was either. I was like, because I was like thinking back, I'm like, I had a lot of time to practice for that album. It must have been pre-kids.
Right, right. Well, and of course there was a long time between when we recorded and when it was finally released, because we're doing this on the side for fun. My buddy Carter's doing a lot of mixing at that time. My nephew Ryan was also doing a lot of the mixing, and it took months. Like, I'd write a song, but it would be a year or so before it ever saw the light of day. So I very much think you probably weren't pregnant at that point.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
you
But
were
yeah,
pregnant
I'm
for the
thinking, I'm
show.
like, I remember practicing like the clarinet solos and just trying to come up with a few different things to present to you. And I just remember I'm like, I had a lot of time to practice.
That's
So
funny. And
that was nice. Those were the
that was
days.
on, yes, and that was on Think It Over, I think, because that one I said, just come up with your own part. Most of the time, I think after that I've written out the parts just because I've had more specific things in mind. But I love it when people surprise me. So yeah, I was actually just listening to that today, just kind of giving it a listen, and very happy with the interaction of the violin and the clarinet on that song.
And
Very
it was
happy.
cool how it ended up working out. Like it
Yeah,
almost sounds like we recorded it together, but we didn't,
right.
It almost sounds like we already played it together in person, but then, I mean, the first time we really did it was, at the show.
Exactly. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, I'm sure when you recorded your first album, I'm sure what helped to make it a little less intimidating was the fact that you just came into my house and it was just like, you know,
Right. It was
so
raw, but it was good.
yeah, it's actually I've redesigned my studio, so everything's moved around. I can now fit an entire band in here, whereas before
Wow.
when you were here, it was all cramped and crowded. In fact, it caused a problem with me with acoustics because suddenly the room was live.
Right.
So I have since added a blanket that I've got hanging from the ceiling, and then I've built a couple of gobos that I move around to record with. So, but anyway, it's a little less modest, but it's still modest. But at the end of the day, how does it sound when it comes out? That's what counts. So, well,
Yes.
so talk about let's talk about your experience with the show. I mean, I've had my experience. I know how it felt, keeping in mind the whole COVID thing and that whole bit. So yeah, how was that for you?
Yeah, so it was, when you first asked me to do it, I was kind of in this I was in this in between part of myself mentally in just the events of 2020 in general. There was a lot of me that just like, I still had the fear of COVID from March 2020.
Yeah.
Um, but then I was kind of starting to come out of that fear a little bit, like there was just a lot of stuff. Like I look back on that and I just hope that never happens again. Because that was just absolute ridiculous. I mean, I even think about just what my students went through
Yeah.
and as a teacher what I went through, musicians in general what we went through. Like we were putting contraptions on our instruments and on our faces, and some instruments weren't even allowed to play because of how they produced air particles or whatever. So
Yeah.
there's just a lot of stuff that I just felt like was working against us as musicians. And so when you had approached me with this opportunity, I was a little bit hesitant at first, but then I thought to myself, like, well, then when am I ever going to play again? Like, when are we ever going to just let music be music again? When are we going to just ever get to just perform again? So I knew I had to jump on that opportunity to show, like, yeah, we can be cautious and take care of others around us, but we don't need to stay locked up in our house. We can go live from lockdown. Music is more powerful than anything that's going to try to overcome us. So I was really happy to get out of the house literally and
Yes.
and come play. And of course, my family and friends, they loved getting to watch it too.
Well, and I think, when we originally started to do the show, we were going to play an actual live show, like with an audience and everything. And then COVID hit. And that's when I made the decision to make it a video of a Facebook Live event. And honestly, that I think worked out for the best because, like you said, family and friends, people from other states or other countries even got to watch it when normally it would have just been whoever was in the area. I think we had a pretty big turnout, if I remember correctly. I think we had something like 100 people viewing or something like that, which was bigger than what we would have had in that room.
And if you think about like the amount of viewers too, if there was two people watching at the same time or four people watching at the same time,
True.
that was a pretty big number.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it was big for us, and that was real exciting. So, well, cool. Yeah. So I remember being stressed out through all the rehearsals and everything because they had to take our temperature. And if anybody came in with a fever, everything would have.
Oh, yeah, honestly, like that temperature thing is wiped from my memory. Like I don't even remember that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't
Everyone who
even,
walked in.
but I do remember being scanned now though that you mentioned it. Like, but that truly was wiped from
Oh,
my memory.
yeah, yeah. That was etched in the marrow of my bone because, you know, we'll just say it would have been not only, of course, obviously the tragedy if somebody came down with sick, COVID, but even if they just got a fever and it had nothing to do with COVID, the fact that that would have closed everything down would have been a financial disaster. Um,
100%.
oh my gosh, yeah, because we had that whole camera crew and everything. But and I remember you made sure you had your own mic and you tried not to share the mic, which, so I hope we tried to accommodate that. I hope we were able to.
Yeah, I think
Because
I think we were fine. Like I even look back on that. I'm like, I don't even know what we were worried about anyway. But I get it. We had to do what we had to do.
my brother-in-law is a doctor. He's a pulmonary specialist, and and my sister called, his wife called me and said, take this seriously. So no, I think we did the right thing. It
Oh,
does. It
yeah.
is weird, since all the inoculations and since the different variants, it does seem like we look back and go, really, was it that big a deal? But it was. It's
Right.
just, hindsight being what it is. So, well, yeah. So, one other question I've asked other folks is, how was it for you, the whole, because for me, it felt like a TV show, the way we filmed it, because we were doing it live. We had to have the cameras. You had, the red light on which camera you're looking at. You had, people saying, all right, we're on in 5, 4, 3, that kind of stuff, right? How did it feel to you, that whole experience of being filmed as opposed to just being in front of a live audience?
Yeah. So I guess it didn't feel too different from a live audience, only because you had your cheerleaders there. Your wife was there,
Yeah.
your kids were there, everybody was there that, like, that could be like that is what gave it like the in-person feel for me.
Right.
But then of course, when we were since we were playing it live anyway, it was just like, boom, we're just doing it one take and done. I think is what made it help feel like a normal live performance.
Right.
Because in cases and scenarios where I have been in tapings before, and it's like we go back and we do it again and we do it again. And I know we did that a couple of times towards the end of the set,
Yeah.
but even so, like, it didn't feel as tedious, which was
Right.
kind of nice. Because I've
Right.
been in situations where it's like, oh, we got to play that again because this person didn't hit this right, or this didn't happen right, or whatever, So it's like, there's been times where it's been a little more like nitpicky or whatever. But no, I thought the process was like fairly easy. I still felt like we were performing for people. And I even, when I was off stage and off camera, I had pulled up on my phone the Facebook Live feed. And so I was like checking in to see everybody who
Oh,
was
cool.
signed in and commenting and stuff. So that was kind of neat to like see what you couldn't normally see, like
Right.
being on stage and looking at the crowd. You can't see like the comments popping above their
Right.
head, like,
Right.
he sounds great, or love that song, or you know what I mean?
Right.
Just
Right.
or some
Right.
people just popping on and being like, wow, look at the strings, wow, so that was
Yeah.
really cool to kind of like scroll through and see what people were saying about the show while we were playing.
That's cool. See, I'm kind of envious, because obviously, being the front man, I had to just be up there the whole time and not see that until after the fact. But it was very fun. I loved the feel of it being a television show. I've actually done some of that before. But you're right. We did redo 2 songs, I think. No, 3 songs. After the broadcast ended, and then we're like, well, you know what? We've got more room on the hard drive. Let's go through. There were 3 songs in. It's like I knew immediately, yeah, I didn't feel good about this one, or that one. So we redid those. Funny little tidbit. To get licensing for 25 or 6 to 4, they were very picky. I had accidentally sung the wrong lyrics. So I sang on the first verse. I think instead of getting up, I closed my eyes, something like that. I said, getting up, I wash my eye, or something like that. The heat of the moment, I sang the wrong lyric. So when I was getting the licensing for it, so that I could legally put it on the Blu-ray and the CD, they wouldn't allow that. They said, basically, you won't get the licensing unless you re-sing that. So I had to take a microphone that was similar to the mics we used at the show. It was an SM58 clone, and I had to stand in front of my speakers and crank them up enough to try to replicate that. And then I sang the line. And then Carter flew it in on the mix, and you can't tell I sang something different. He didn't even have to adjust anything. He literally just took my WAV file, put it in, and it just sounded like the rest of it. So that was one of those. It was weird how easy it was to do. We were both expecting to tweak it and EQ it, and it's going to sound suddenly different or whatever. And no, you can't tell from watching it. So have you had a chance to watch it yet? I know it's not released yet, but you being a Insider have an advanced copy.
Wait, is this what's in here?
Yes.
Oh, because I hadn't opened it yet. I was saving it for the
Right.
unboxing.
Right.
So I'm opening, and
Yeah.
look what it is. There it is. I
Oh my
have the
goodness.
exclusive Blu-ray. Ooh.
Yes, you've seen it before your friends and family.
Yes. And
Yes.
so it's really cool because on the back there are photos of everybody. It looks like there's actually a couple photos of us just at rehearsal on here, which is really cool.
That's actually what those pictures are. Those are pictures that Amelia took while we were rehearsing.
That is so
And
cool.
so, and actually, if you look in the CD, that's the fold out of the CD as well.
Oh my gosh. And I'm cracking up right now because I'm looking at my sheet music and I see where I wrote flats really big. So I'm going to miss any flats. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Oh, I know.
I'm trying to open it here. 1 second.
Yeah. And I tell you, Sandra, my oldest daughter, Sandra, she is an amazing graphic designer, is she not?
She is, and I know that she's done work on, I think, all of your albums.
Yeah, she has. She's all
of
my albums.
Yes.
And then hey, whether you like our music or not, you got to admit they look pro. So
they do. They look really good. And I will say my favorite album that she designed is the one I recorded on with the people going like, why can't I remember the name of it?
Secrets and Alibis.
There we go. I almost called it like the tree one, but I was like, that's not right.
Yeah, the tree. Yes.
Is it awful? But I'm like, this is what I go. So the inside cover.
Well, the inside of the CD, because there's a CD in there as well.
Oh, the CD. See, and here I am like opening the Blu-ray. I'm like, oh,
right. You're right. The Blu-ray doesn't have that picture, but yeah, if you open up the CD, because look what else you got.
Well, I'll tell you what, like JP, my oldest son, he got to see this show live from lockdown. Like he was like, watching it live with my husband, Oh, that's cool. So it'll be kind of fun to revisit it and then let my youngest check it out too,
And just to let you know, the Blu-ray is completely remastered, re-edited. The audio is completely remixed. We punched up like the guitar sounds, punched up the drums, all that kind of stuff. I had to re-sing a line or two just because of licensing reasons. Right. And yeah, and it's also like color corrected and re-edited visually too, because Michael Killen, who is an Emmy award-winning producer, he actually did the editing. So he's a good friend of mine. And
that's great. Yeah, so I'm just opening this CD.
Yes.
All the CDs you've given me, like I haven't opened them. Like I have them as like they're like my.
Oh, I see.
Right, because you can listen. When I'm ever really opening, but opening the CD like that, I haven't opened a CD in a really long time because everything's streamed now, right? Like I literally stream everything: Spotify, YouTube, whatever. And so, like opening that gave me legit nostalgia. Like I was opening like my Green Day CD or my Blink-182, my Britney Spears,
I am a big proponent of physical media because there's a lot of my favorite artists that only partially on Spotify, or they're on Spotify and then all of a sudden big licensing runs out or whatever and they're gone. A band I'm really into, Spock's Beard. My favorite albums were from like 1990 to like 2000, and then after from 2000 to current is they changed singers, and his main singer was the writer, and I just didn't like the direction they headed. But if you go to Spotify, all they have are 2000 on. They don't have their 1990 albums for some reason, and it must be because the other singer owns them or something, and there's who knows. And the same thing happened with the movies, the streaming. Movies go away. So if I care enough about it, I buy the physical media for that very reason.
Right, exactly.
I'm huge fan of that.
This is so cool.
Yeah, see, and that's the picture.
How fun.
And that's Sandra thought it'd be cool to take them and kind of put them all in the same, like a grayed out kind of look. And I thought it turned out great.
I was gonna say, I like that it has a blue hue to it to match the album. And then there's the full band shot. That was a big band.
I know.
Actually, wait, they are. The strings are in there.
Yeah, that's one of my, so for me, the biggest charge, you have to understand, like because I know you've worked with a lot of orchestra, and so that's not unusual for you. For me, all I've ever been able to work with my whole life has been 4 or 5 piece rock band. And if we had strings, it was the keyboardist playing samples, or a patch that sounded as close to strings as they could sound. But I grew up listening to the Alan Parsons Project, and other the Beatles and all these groups that threw orchestra in, and I always wanted that. So for me, this was the biggest charge, was having a real string section, real horns, real woodwinds, all on stage at the same time. So that was probably my favorite part of the whole show.
Yeah, it was really fun. That's one thing I love about being a woodwind specialist. It's just not a lot of people do it. I mean, there are a lot of people that play clarinet and saxophone, but like, you don't hear about it a lot. Like, a lot of people are more like, oh, I'm a vocalist, or I play guitar, or I play piano, so it's really fun when I get a chance to do my primary instrument in a very commercial setting like that.
Yeah, I bet. So I really enjoy it. And I love having you in the group. Also, just so you know, Michael, when he was editing the video, he kept saying, he goes, I just love all the shots that have Brittany in it. You were just so into it. There was a shot where you're just like dancing, you can see you off to the side.
How could you not? It was fun. We were all just up there having a fun time. And that was the other thing when we were filming and stuff, it was just kind of this time of like, hey, let's just have fun. We're all there together, and like, there were a few times I just like looked over at that, I was standing right next to the guitarists and pianists, and like, I just like look over at them and they'd look over at me, and we'd just be vibing. Like, it was so much fun.
It was. Yes, Dan, who was playing piano, Dan DeFigio, and Mark Horowitz also played some keyboards. They were so into it. They were totally rocking it. Don Morgan, who was playing our bass, he and Mark Horowitz and Dan are all saying, hey, let's play some more. Let's do this some more. Probably won't be able to do the full-blown band as often, just because, that's a bit of a challenge to find a stage that will fit us. But yeah, and not to mention logistics of getting everyone together. But so we might play out some more, maybe in a smaller incarnation that's a little closer to what I'm used to, with just maybe keyboards taking up the slack on some, and maybe rearranging some of the songs. But that's not to say in the future we won't do more, because we did last October do another live show that unfortunately did not get recorded. I mean, it got recorded, but it got recorded like on a little phone from a distance. And the audio tracks were lost. I know, and we sounded great.
We did. It was a good reunion.
Yeah, it really was. And we sounded great, and the mixing board for some reason wasn't routed right. So I got the SD cards, and they hit record, and it said it was recording, and I took it home, and it was 4 gigabytes of silence. Ooh. On each, and because each disc was 4 gig for sound, and I just went, oh no. So we don't have any of that recorded in a usable format other than the little phone recording, which sucks, but that's okay, because we have this show that was recorded with 4 cameras at high resolution broadcast quality. It was a pro rig, pro setup, everything. So it's kind of, like, as a friend of mine likes to say, it's good to have low friends in high places. But Michael hooked me up with a real production company, and because of COVID, they were desperate for work, so they gave me a really good rate. So I was able to afford to do things I may not have been able to afford to do in a normal time. So, silver lining to the dark cloud, right? And so what's cool about the video is we made it all about the fact that we were playing in the time of COVID, and that we overcame odds, because, with enough people coming into that room, there were odds that somebody would have a fever,
somebody would get it.
Yeah, and somebody would not, it would not work out. So that fortunately did not happen. So anyway, do you have a Blu-ray player with which to watch it on?
Yes, it's on our PlayStation.
That's okay. Mine is an Xbox, so I've totally
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I will actually be able to watch this.
awesome. Well, and if the reason I ask is it's also going to be available on Vimeo. And I know some of the guys in the band don't have Blu-ray players, so I'm going to try to make it where everybody can see. I'm not going to put it on YouTube because I want to put it on a monetizable program. Down the road, I probably will, but not for a while, not for a long while. So I appreciate your participation in that. That was wonderful. I hope we can have collaborations in the future. I know you've moved a little further away, but
I'm not that far.
yeah. Well,
I've already been back and forth to Nashville a couple times,
oh,
taking
awesome.
kids to the zoo, that kind of thing.
Well, awesome. Well, good, because I've actually written a bunch of new songs.
Great.
And so I will, yeah. So if, and obviously you're always, I'll work with you on your schedule, because especially since you live far enough away that it's not like you can just hop over in a few minutes. But so exciting. I know, putting you on the spot on video, but I'll play this back if you can't. No, I'm kidding. But no, seriously,
I was going to say, where's my clarinet? I'll go get it.
Yeah. So I'm excited about it. But that's a story for another time. So again, folks, this is all about the upcoming release, Void Contact Live from Lockdown. It's not only coming out on Blu-ray and on CD, but it's also on all the streaming platforms, including Vimeo for the video streaming. And again, this has been Brittany Bandstra, who played saxophone, clarinet, and sang backup. And Brittany, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. Okay, folks, thanks a lot, and stay tuned. It's June 30th is the release.